As you just saw right here on Fox, Donald Trump just now wrapping up a rally in Virginia as the countdown rolls on. Just about 48 hours until his big showdown with Hillary Clinton. They will go face-to-face Monday night, the first time as presidential nominees. Clinton's taking some time off the campaign trail, though, this weekend to prep for Monday's debate at Hofstra University. But instead of hitting the books tonight, Trump hit up the major battleground state of Virginia to a major crowd with this rally going on in Roanoke. He is closing the gap with Clinton in the Virginia poll average from a 13-point deficit at the end of August to a 6-point deficit right now. And Trump tonight coming off a surprise endorsement from a bitter rival in the Republican primaries, Senator Ted Cruz. Peter Doocy is live in Roanoke tonight, and this endorsement, a very big one and quite a big surprise for many, Peter.
Right, and Julie, Donald Trump just exited the stage, walked down a long catwalk here at a very large venue in Roanoke, Virginia. The crowd now starting to file out, and he did not mention perhaps the most interesting thing that happened today on the campaign trail. It involves something that we may or may not see on Monday night. He's teasing a very high-profile guest, which would be the woman who says that she had an affair with Bill Clinton for more than 10 years, which could be awkward for Hillary Clinton, who's going to be standing up there on stage. Trump tweeted earlier today that he is interested now in having Jennifer Flowers on his guest list, and he's doing that because the Clinton campaign gave one of their tickets to Trump critic Mark Cuban. So Trump talking a lot about things that could be happening off stage. He also is talking a lot ahead of that debate about accusations of pay for play by his opponent, Mrs. Clinton.
She put her public office up for sale and then bleached her emails and destroyed her iPhones with a hammer to try and cover up her tracks following a congressional subpoena. Figure that one out.
So that could be a little bit of a look at what we're going to see on Monday night. That's a very condensed version of some older attacks on Clinton mixed in with some newer ones, kind of keeping with the headlines, going with the flow. But Trump used this Saturday night to rally here in Roanoke instead of study at Trump Tower in Manhattan, which is a signal from the campaign that they think he is ready for Lester Holt, the moderator, and Hillary Clinton, the Democrat. Julie?
Peter, what did we just hear from Ted Cruz about his endorsement of Trump? Because as we know, these two traded several jabs, some getting pretty personal about each other's family members. And so Ted Cruz has come out. He has said that he has forgiven him and he's ready to move on. And by endorsing Donald Trump, he says a lot about his support of him becoming the next president of the United States. What did we hear about that from Ted Cruz?
Julie, Cruz now is explaining what changed between his very dramatic RNC convention remarks where he told Republicans to vote their conscience instead of telling them to vote for Donald Trump, and yesterday where he said that Trump was going to have his vote.
What I was attempting to do at Cleveland was lay out a vision. This is how we unite Republicans. This is how we come together and win. And in my view, this shouldn't be a personality contest. This shouldn't just be a battle of celebrities. This should be about substance. And what I tried to lay out in Cleveland is that for us to win, we need to unite behind shared principles, in particular, defending freedom and defending the Constitution.
The Trump campaign had released a list yesterday, a complete list of 21 people they will consider, Donald Trump would consider, as the next Supreme Court justice if he becomes president. And Ted Cruz said he is so fond of everybody on that list. That was the main driver for his surprise endorsement yesterday. But it's really interesting. Even though he said he's going to vote for Trump, he was asked many different times today to say whether or not he thinks Donald Trump is fit to be president, and he would not say it. And the fact that Cruz would not go there is just going to fuel speculation among some in the media and on Capitol Hill that Ted Cruz just doesn't want to be on tape saying that in case he wants to stage a primary challenge against the President Trump in 2020.
Absolutely.
Julie?
And, you know, you also have to dig deep into the strategy behind all of this. And with Ted Cruz coming out, obviously this is a strategy. The strategy is now, between now and November 8th, to win over those millennials, win over those undecided, and also some of those ultra-conservative evangelical votes that strongly supported Ted Cruz, much like Hillary Clinton is trying to reach out to the millennials by bringing in Elizabeth Warren and by bringing in Bernie Sanders. Now Donald Trump's got to pull out his big guns. How much of a big gun could Ted Cruz really be to all of those undecideds that were such diehard Cruz fans?
It's potentially huge, Julie, because you think about at this point in a general election, the major party candidates are generally sprinting to the center. They've already dealt with the hardliners in their party, the far right, the far left, and then they try to get all these people in the middle. But Trump is doing that, but now he's also showing that he's able to still get some of the very conservative Republicans who have been skeptical about him because Ted Cruz never said until yesterday that it was okay to vote for Trump. So you could see a lot of people watching this debate on Monday not as skeptical for the first time. These Republicans who had been doing what Ted Cruz told them to do, and now Ted Cruz is telling them it's okay to vote for Trump, and they might be looking at him with a less skeptical eye. Julie?
When you watch Trump deliver these speeches like tonight, you wonder how much of it is scripted, how much of it is off the cuff. A lot of times when it does go off the cuff, sometimes it does become personal. But tonight, it sounded presidential to me. I watched the speech and I listened very carefully. My question is, how much of it was scripted, how much of it was off the cuff?
It seemed like almost the entire speech tonight was close to script. A lot of the times when he sticks to the prompter, the events are shorter. Tonight was short by Trump standards. It seemed like the only time that he was not reading from the teleprompter was when he came out and announced the score of the Virginia Tech game, and he told the whole crowd that they had just won and that there were a bunch of people in orange and black shirts outside waiting to come in or trying to come in. The crowd obviously went crazy. But that's something that we see from Trump in all these swing states now. It is a very precise message, but it's also swing state specific. Tonight, a lot of talk about Virginia, the problems here, a couple knocks against Tim Kaine, which we do not always hear from Trump when he comes to Virginia. He said tonight that he thinks Tim Kaine was a bad choice for Hillary Clinton's running mate. But so it seemed like it was as planned. He came in, he got out, and people are leaving now thinking about who they're going to vote for in November.
I think everybody there knows exactly who they're going to be voting for in November. And Peter Doocy, thank you very much to you. Of course, we're going to play back some of Donald Trump's speech that ended just moments ago, specifically when he talks about what he plans on doing on his first day of office, in the first weeks of office, compared to Hillary Clinton. Some interesting notes that he made there. Turning now to the Democrats, speaking of Hillary Clinton, reportedly she has been getting some final debate practice in today at a hotel near her home in Chappaqua, New York. Rich Edson is live in Clinton's hometown of Chappaqua, New York, with more tonight. So, Rich, what are you learning about her prep today? Because she's been staying out of the public eye, much unlike Donald Trump, in order to really get herself geared up for Monday.
Yeah, she has, Julie. Her last public appearance was Wednesday. She returned here to Chappaqua, New York that evening. There's been a lot of debate prep since then. This morning she left her Chappaqua, New York home around 11:30, returned shortly before 5 p.m. The Clinton campaign refuses to tell us specifically where she is holding that debate prep. A Democratic source close to those preparations tells our Mike Emanuel that Philippe Rines, her longtime aide, is playing Donald Trump in these mock debates that they're hosting. The source adds that since Rines is such a combative guy, normally he has no problem going after her perceived weaknesses and getting under her skin, as Donald Trump might try to do. Meanwhile, her running mate, Senator Tim Kaine, says that in the debate between the two, Clinton and Trump, that Clinton will try to explain the policy difference between the two, and he's predicting a good performance from her.
If you've watched Hillary Clinton over the years, what you notice is when the spotlights are at their brightest and the pressure is at its most intense, that's when she brings the A+ game.
The Clinton campaign's communications director, Jen Palmieri, says Clinton is going to focus on making the closing arguments in this debate to voters and says that Clinton will not be focused on how Donald Trump might behave, in her words, Julie.
All right. Well, she's also scheduled, by the way, Rich, a planned trip to North Carolina tomorrow, obviously a very important state. What's her plan there?
Now, she has delayed those plans. This is, of course, after the shooting by a police officer there, the riots that followed. The mayor had asked both presidential candidates not to visit quite yet. So her campaign, Clinton's campaign, put out a statement saying, quote, Hillary is grateful for and intends to honor the invitation from faith leaders to visit with the Charlotte community. After further discussion with community leaders, we have decided to postpone Sunday's trip as to not impact the city's resources. The statement goes on to say that Clinton is hoping to travel down there next Sunday only if circumstances in that city allow. The Clinton campaign is also saying that after the debate on Monday, Clinton, her family members, the First Lady, the Vice President will all be fanning out across the country to key battleground states to continue to make the case for her presidency. Julie?
Rich Edson, thank you very much. Reporting live from Chappaqua, New York, where Hillary Clinton is studying up for her big night on Monday. Rich, thank you. And stay tuned right here. I don't need to tell you, right? This is the place you need to catch all of the latest as Trump and Clinton prepare for Monday's first presidential debate at Hofstra. We're live all day tomorrow with extended coverage. You do not want to miss it. Fox News alert right now. Charlotte officials have just released some of their very first footage from a police-involved shooting in an effort to calm public outrage. We are working on editing those tapes for air. We will bring them to you as soon as possible, but we will show you some still shots grabbed from the video, from the scene, showing a gun, an ankle holster, and what is described as a blunt earlier today, that would be marijuana. Now, the Charlotte police chief commented on the highly anticipated shooting video, warning that it does not show everything.
There is no definitive visual evidence that he had a gun in his hand. He absolutely was in possession of a handgun.
This as we await a news conference from the attorneys for the family of Keith Lamont Scott. We're live in Charlotte. We'll take you there next. More now on the breaking news coming out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Police there releasing some of the footage from a deadly police-involved shooting, and we are working on editing those tapes for air, of course, making them appropriate for you at home, and we will bring them to you as soon as possible. But Steve Harrigan, meantime, joins us now with more from Charlotte tonight. Steve, first of all, tell us about this video. How much does it show? How much does it not show?
It is graphic video that has to be shown with some caution. There's two pieces of video from that officer-involved shooting which occurred on Tuesday afternoon. One comes from the body cam of an officer on the scene, and the other, more compelling, comes from the dash cam video of one of the patrol cars at the scene. It's on that dash cam video that you can see shots fired from a police officer hitting 43-year-old Keith Scott, and Scott going down. At the time, it appears that Scott's hands are at his side. What's not clear, at least on our initial viewing, is whether he had a gun in his hand or not, whether the 43-year-old Keith Scott was holding a gun. That's been the key question. Of course, the chief of police here has asserted all along that this video is inconclusive, that you won't be able to draw a conclusion one way or the other on that, but he maintains that his officers have done nothing wrong. They've come under a lot of pressure here to release that videotape. The question now that they are being released is, what effect is it going to have? We saw a video released by the widow yesterday which showed the shooting from a distance. That did not inflame protests. Will this new police video get more people out on the street, or will those demonstrations continue to subside here, Julie?
The video we're watching right now was the video that was shot by his wife. What we are about to see, once we get it edited for proper viewing on television, is the body cam video and the dash cam video. And I understand the dash cam video is really the video that shows the majority of the evidence that will be needed in order to answer questions as to exactly how this all went down. But Steve, let me ask you, because in the first initial police report, it was actually reported by the police department, and I want to read this directly from their report, that the subject exited the vehicle armed with a firearm. That little detail seems to be questioned by many, whether he was armed, whether he was not armed. You said that his arms were down by his side. Did it appear as though he was armed?
It's inconclusive from the video that we've just witnessed. Of course, people are going to have to examine that video closely and make their own decisions as to whether he was holding a gun or not and whether he posed an imminent threat or not. But he certainly gets out of the vehicle, and we heard it even in the widow's video, several times police officers shouting, "Put the gun down, put the gun down." There's really been competing versions here of different videos. It hasn't sparked a major protest yesterday with that emotional video of a wife actually watching her husband get shot and die. So this police video is a little more generic. It's questionable whether that's going to bring more people out on the street or not, but certainly the protesters' main demand, the suspicion here that the police were hiding something, that claim has now gone away with the police coming out, giving the protesters what they wanted. This police video of the shooting out now. Julie.
All right, Steve Harrigan, thank you very much. We'll be showing our viewers that video momentarily, but for now, we want to talk here with Vincent Hill. He's the host of Beyond the Badge and a law enforcement analyst. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
This police report specifically says that he was armed, and Steve Harrigan mentioned something very, very important, that you do hear police officers in this video saying, "Put your weapon down."
Right, and that's what's important. And Steve also mentioned imminent threat.
Right.
Now, whether his arms were to his side, that's debatable. But I can tell you as an officer who has been there, it only takes less than a second for someone to pull that gun on target on me. So you're going to get into a lot of, well, he wasn't a threat, he was a threat. For those people that don't know anything about police training, the use of force continuum, that's going to be questionable today.
And for those who do not understand what a real threat means, let me tell you what a real threat means. If you're armed, it doesn't matter if that gun is pulled. It doesn't matter if you've cocked your weapon. It doesn't matter if you're pointing it at somebody. If you have a deadly weapon in your hand, police have to assume and is armed, they have to assume that that gun is going to be used on them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did they make the right move from what you have heard regarding the imminent threat that you're talking about?
Well, the use of force continuum talks about deadly force. And you respond to deadly force with deadly force. You don't de-escalate deadly force, because the second you do that is the second an officer is killed. So you have to meet the level of threat that you're faced with. So I don't think the officers, if the gun was in his hand, did anything wrong here.
Here's the problem. Officers, unfortunately, have to face the race factor. So no matter how imminent a threat is, if that victim is black and any one of those officers are white, or even if the officers are black, if the victim is black, this is the conversation. These are the protests that we're going to continue to see. Is there any way to reverse that tide?
Well, see, here's the thing. You can't take a 30-second incident and make it racial. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. You just destroy everything police work for every day. I was in the black community. I dealt with black suspects. Right. Was it racial? No, it was not racial. It was because this is where I was called for a crime. So when we do that, we diminish the work of policing across this country.
Vincent Hill, thank you very much for talking to us. And we will be airing that video once we get it edited for you on the other side of the break, so stay tuned to that. And right now, a massive manhunt underway for a killer who gunned down 5 people at a mall. We're there on the ground in Washington State. It has happened again, sadly. We'll tell you the result of this latest shooting next. This is a Fox News alert, and we are now going to show you for the very first time, and a warning, the video you are about to see is graphic, although we have edited it so that it is appropriate for television. We have blurred out the victim, but we do want to show you that video. Go ahead and roll this tape. This video was released by the Charlotte Police Department, the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department involved in the shooting, and the officer, they also released that officer's name, Officer Brentley Vinson, who reports that the victim in this, who was Keith Lamont Scott, had been armed with a deadly weapon. And when police told him to drop the gun, and in this video, let's listen.
Handcuff. Well, I can see you gripping his hand. Gripping his hand. Back up. I got right gun. Back up. Back up. You on? Huh? Hey, I'm gonna get my my bag and start getting some equipment. Where's your bag, dude? You good? Just take it back in my trunk. You good? I'm good. Get some gloves. We need to hold the wound.
Now, when he says we want to hold the wound, what happened was they immediately called medics there. They performed CPR. The victim later died at a hospital. Here is the victim's family talking right now after this video was released. The attorneys for the family of Keith Lamont Scott right now addressing the media in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's listen.
He doesn't appear to be acting aggressive towards any of the law enforcement officers on the scene. He doesn't appear to be making gestures or motions as though he's arguing with anybody. He doesn't lunge at the officers. Appears he has his hands by his side. Again, there is no definitive evidence in this video as to whether or not there is an object in his hand, and if there is, what that object is. That question still remains. But what we do know is that the moment Mr. Scott is shot, it appears as though he's not aggressively moving towards law enforcement. He's actually doing the opposite. He's passively stepping back. There's another key question that I think needs to be looked into, and of course we are going to look into it, and that is this. Given the statement that was released and CMPD's position that these officers saw some things go on, they left, they suited up, they came back, and they proceeded to move in on Mr. Scott, is this talk of body cameras. We need to know whether or not the policies and procedures of this department is for officers who are now, as they say, identifying themselves as police officers with this department. Are they required to wear body cameras? Because we know that one responding officer with this department who was in uniform was. And at the moment they put this vest on that it appears may say police or indicate that they are law enforcement, do they need to have their cameras on? If they do and they don't have them on, that is a problem. And quite frankly, with this issue of body cameras, we have no perspective from the alleged shooter, what he saw. These are things that have to be looked at. So with that said, we'll pass on to Charles.
Good evening. I'm sorry?
Did you identify yourself?
I'm Ray Dotch. I'm Rakia Scott's brother.
I'm Rachel Dotch. I'm Rakia.
We are certainly delighted as a family that the videos were released. Our goal has from the beginning been to get the absolute unfiltered truth, and the only way to get that is for the police to release the videos that were released today. Unfortunately, we are left with far more questions than we have answers. It does not make sense to us how it was possible that this incident resulted in the loss of life. It just does not make sense, and it is not clear in the videos that were released. Additionally, many of you, the media, of which I am a part, have requested information about Mr. Scott, what kind of person he is. Was he a good father? Was he a good husband? Those issues surrounding his character. Of course he was a wonderful person. Of course we loved him dearly, but that shouldn't be the issue. We shouldn't have to humanize him in order for him to be treated fairly. What we know and what you should know about him is that he was an American citizen who deserved better. That is our position, and it should be yours. My name is Ray, last name Dotch, D as in David, O-T-C-H. I am Rakia Scott's brother, Keith Scott's brother-in-law.
And, excuse me, my name is Charles Manette. I'm the local Charlotte person here, and you know, I love this city. I love our state. I respect our police department and understand the difficulty of the job that they have to do.
But quite frankly, I'm shocked, less than 2 years after the conclusion of the Jonathan Ferrell case, that we're standing back before you again to talk about whether the shooting of another black man was justified. We shouldn't be here. We've got to learn. We've got to change our police approach. And one of the things that really disturbs me about what I see on the video is the failure of the police to use all of the resources that they had at their disposal to avoid killing Keith. You know, we're a state with a huge number of veterans, and many of those veterans are coming back with traumatic brain injuries. This isn't going to be the last time police face one of our citizens who suffered from a brain injury. His wife is there trying to tell them he's a man with a brain injury. Why didn't they use that resource? Why didn't they get his wife in and get her assistance to de-escalate this situation? We hear that that's something that's supposed to be being emphasized in police departments all over the country. De-escalate, don't escalate. But that did not happen here, and we have to ask ourselves why. You know, the standards that the Charlotte Police Department has adopted for the use of deadly force are something called aggravated active aggression. Before a firearm can be discharged by an officer and be in compliance with their policy, the subject that they are trying or about to shoot has to be engaged in aggravated active aggression, which they define as the imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death to an officer or another innocent bystander. Their policy talks about the discharge of a weapon, not the presence of a weapon. So are there training problems here? From what we see, that policy is not being followed. So we hope that this is the last time that media has to gather in Charlotte and talk about whether the shooting of one of our citizens is justified. We hope the city and the police will learn from this encounter.
At this time, we'll entertain a few questions.
First question for the relatives, if they could come forward, please.
Well, at this time, the family is not going to be taking any questions. We'll take the questions.
Could you just tell us the state of Rakia Scott and her children, and what, if any, message they have for the city of Charlotte as it's divided over this case?
Well, they're doing as you would probably expect them to be doing. They're still in a time of mourning. Of course, funeral preparations are underway. And again, you know, it's hard to flip through the television without seeing talk of what happened to Mr. Scott and individuals like him. But I can tell you that the family is strong. They're sticking together. They're supporting one another. Their message is, as it has been from the beginning, you know, it's okay to express your voice. It's okay to let your frustrations with the system and with the justices and injustices of society, but you have to do that in the appropriate way. They still maintain they do not want violence. They do not want innocent individuals being injured or killed.
He has a gun in his hand?
Absolutely not. There is nothing in any video that I have seen, whether it be Miss Scott's, whether it be the dash cam or the body cam. You can't clearly identify what, if anything, is in his hand, and that has not changed.
Are you debating
We
which officer shot him? Are you debating that as family and attorney?
We are still looking into all of the facts, of course, with regards to who pulled the trigger. We don't have access to any of the testing that may or may not have yet been done on the firearms. We are looking into all facets of this because, as we said from the beginning, we're not here to hurl allegations. We're here to find out what happened and why it happened, and more importantly, we're here to make sure the best we can that this doesn't have to happen again in the future.
I have a question about the police. The police are saying that part of the reason why this happened was because he had marijuana and a gun. I'm not really, you can say whether or not he had marijuana and a gun, but I'm more interested in the idea that even if he had marijuana and a gun, that this ended up fatally. There are people I've been talking to who just saying, even if that was the case, you take them at their word that this shouldn't have ended fatally. What's your statement?
How does the combination of marijuana and a gun constitute aggravated active aggression that put the lives of these officers in danger?
Was that his gun?
This is our first time seeing an actual photograph of not just that gun, but the holster and everything else. We are investigating and looking into the facts, and we hope to continue to dig, and we will find out the truth at the end of the day.
How would it not believe that he's unarmed? Doesn't lead to a criminal charges. What will happen?
Come again?
If the FBI investigation does not lead to criminal charges against the officer, what will happen?
Well, we have both a civil justice system and a criminal justice system, and that's the place for this ultimately to be resolved in our justice system, whether it's criminal or civil. And at this point, we just don't know enough of the facts to know whether this officer should be charged, whether it's appropriate, whether he negligently discharged his weapon. We're trying to do an appropriate investigation, to keep an open mind, and that's what we urge everyone to do.
You say you're still investigating whether this was his gun. However, now you presented DNA evidence that was on that gun. How do you explain his DNA ending up on that weapon found in the
Well, I can't answer that question. Again, this is our very first opportunity to see what else is out there, which is what we have been asking for from the beginning. But I think, and we have to go back to the most important question here, and that lies from the moments leading up to him stepping out of the vehicle to him dying on the pavement. And I can tell you that when I look at the dash cam footage, I don't see anything there, in my opinion, that would lead to him losing his life.
Does the family still believe that he was unarmed?
Yes, those who looked at it, i.e. Ms. Scott, as she looks, she doesn't see him having a gun. None of these things change. And one thing that everyone has to understand, and we've said this before, is every witness to this has different vantage points. And we are attempting to grab here and grab there and piece together a picture, okay? When one piece of information comes out, that doesn't change someone else's position, because that's their position based on what they know. And that's when I say we don't speak on speculation. We're here to find facts. We're not hurling allegations. We want to know, again, what happened and exactly why it happened.
One way or another, there's going to be reaction to this. Perhaps tonight, what's your message to those who may be planning another round of protests this weekend?
Just what we've said over and over and over again, and we'll continue to say. We appreciate the support of the community. We want the support of the community. The community should express their opinions, but they should do it lawfully and peacefully.
Thank you all. No more questions for right now, because just as this is...
And there you have it, the lawyers representing Keith Lamont Scott's family, Keith Scott's brother-in-law, also speaking there, talking to the video that we just released for you. So far, we have managed to edit the body cam video. That we have edited down and shown the moments in which Scott was shot by police, and then afterward you can hear the sound of police calling the medics and trying to put pressure on the wound, and then later performing CPR. Scott later died at a nearby hospital. But the question now is what in this video will help or hurt police in their investigation as the investigation continues. And Steve Harrigan rejoins us now from Charlotte. And Steve, we are working right now on the dash cam video, which supposedly does show actually more. My producers are talking to me. Do we have that video? Okay. Steve, just stand by one moment. We're going to go ahead for the very first time and show our viewers at home the dash cam video. This is the video of police officers as they were pulling up. Let's listen.
2537, you said one up top. He doesn't have a gun. We have all the guys. And we're taking. Nothing disturbance for shoe flags, correction flag, no flags, you know, parking lot, 8700 Volkswagen. Turn on third party, black, no
We're freezing this video right here because we don't want to show it. We're listening to the audio as we continue to watch the video. So right now that paused video is our doing. The original video, which can be seen online, can show you what exactly happens here. But the officers from the Metro Division Crime Reduction Unit were actually searching for a suspect with an outstanding warrant. That's who they were searching for when they caught up with Keith Lamont Scott in that vehicle on September 20th. And in the video later, you see that he gets out of the vehicle, but then he gets back in. The officers repeatedly asked him to stop and turn himself in. He did not listen. He went back into the car. Steve Harrigan rejoins me again. And Steve, it's when Scott got out of the car that in that video, you saw the body cam video as well, where his hands are down by his side, but that you do hear officers say, he's got a weapon, put your weapon down. And then in the dash cam video that we're watching now, they're actually trying to get him out of his car. What happens once he goes back into that car? How do they get him out?
They're shouting at him several times. It's unclear what causes him to get out of the vehicle, but really I think the key word here is inconclusive. We heard it from the police chief this afternoon, and just a short time ago we heard it from attorneys for the family members. So both sides saying the key question, did 43-year-old Keith Scott have a handgun in his possession, in his hand at the time he was shot? Both sides saying right now that is inconclusive from this video. The other question, how is the release of this video going to affect the street protest tonight? They've calmed down over the past 2 nights. Will this video inflame things further, or will we see the numbers continue to diminish here in Charlotte? Julie, back to you.
All right, Steve Harrigan, thank you very much. So this does leave a lot of questions as far as what happened. How did they get him out of the car? That is all the video that they released from the dash cam video, and many people wanted to see exactly the moment when he got out of the car, why, how he got out of the car. Did he have that handgun in his hands? However, you do hear his wife on his video, on the video that she had shot, saying, stop, don't do it. Some say that perhaps they heard her say, Keith, don't do it. You hear the officers say, drop your weapon, and in the original police report, he was armed. Of course, many more questions to be answered, but right now we continue with another big story here on the Fox Report. A massive manhunt underway for a killer who gunned down 5 people at a mall. We're there on the ground in Washington State with a live report next. The hunt is on for the man accused of shooting and killing 5 people at a mall in Washington State. Now, investigators are scouring through this surveillance video to piece together exactly what happened and who this guy on your screen is. This man allegedly responsible for the deaths of 4 women and 1 man. And they are all confirmed dead in the rampage. A witness describes the scene. Listen.
I heard about 1. And then 2, and then that's when I turned around, and then that's when round started going 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it wasn't all at once. It was more like a shot, and then 2 seconds later another shot. You know, so crazy, crazy.
Another senseless shooting. Dan Springer covering it for us from Cascade Mall in Burlington, Washington. So Dan, what is the latest in the investigation so far? They don't have the suspect.
Yeah, and Julie. Yeah, the Cascade Mall is still closed down today. It's being conducted as a crime scene. They have removed all the victims' bodies, we understand. As you mentioned, the police have been poring over a lot of surveillance video. They did find a bunch of pictures of the suspect. They released those to the media, and they're trying to generate tips that way, but so far a few tips have come in. From those pictures, we know the mass killer walked into the mall just before 7 o'clock, and he was not carrying a weapon. 10 minutes later, he walks through the same door holding what appears to be a hunting rifle. It could indicate that he wanted to make sure his intended target was in the store before arming himself, but that's not been confirmed by police. A witness in a changing room told police that she heard a man screaming a woman's name just before the shots were fired. When it was over, 5 people were dead, 4 women and 1 man. Police found the rifle, but the suspect was gone. Last seen walking toward Interstate 5 right next to the mall.
I don't know what his motivations were. I don't know what his motivations was to do this. I don't know what his motivations was to continue. I don't know what his motivations was to stop. But I certainly plan to find out through the investigation.
The victims range in age from a teenager up to a senior citizen, all shot and killed in the makeup section of Macy's. Police say they cannot find any sort of link to terrorism, domestic or foreign. They are conducting this as a homicide investigation. The FBI has been involved, but this is lead investigators are the local authorities. Julie?
Tragic. Dan Springer, thank you so much. Well, if Monday night isn't the Super Bowl of this election year, it certainly has a huge playoff game. Let me tell you, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump facing off, face to face, for the very first time. So what does each need to do in the debate to pull voters to their side until November 8th? The do's and don'ts next. Monday night's debate offers high risks and high rewards for both candidates. On stage with millions of people watching on TV, there's no place to hide. And one wrong move or verbal gaffe could take a big toll on a presidential campaign. So let's break it down. Some of the do's and don'ts for you. For Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, with me now, Jim Osmond, Washington Bureau Chief for Media General Television, and an old pal of mine as we worked together in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania many, many moons ago.
We did.
All right, while a debate doesn't necessarily win you an election, it can lose you an election.
Well, remember Al Gore in 2000 with the sigh, right? I mean, and it was like a subtle thing, but then the next day it blew up, and it was a tight race towards the end. So you're right. If you foul it up, it could make or break the race, especially with this race where there's so many unknowns, having a Donald Trump in the middle of it.
Yeah, so a screw up could really be catastrophic. Let's talk about the do's and the don'ts. Let's talk with Hillary first. The do's. What must she do on Monday night?
Well, I think she needs to tell more about her life. We need to learn more about Hillary Clinton. She did not wake up one day at 42 years old with a shock of blonde hair and become Hillary Clinton. I mean, you know, she had a life before that. She was a young lawyer in Arkansas. She did work with the poor. I think we need to learn more about that earlier years. The second one that I listed here is that she has to be more transparent. We know that this is a big problem, a huge problem, and Robert Kennedy once said, hang a lantern on your problem. Right? She needs to hang a lantern on her problem instead of giving us these kind of Harvard Law School debates about the emails and everything else.
Hang a lantern on her emails, or on her BlackBerry, for God's sake.
I don't know if you fit it.
What are some don'ts for Hillary, real quick? Don't lay back out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, she has to go quickly out of the gate, make sure she's strong, not hesitant. I mean, she doesn't want to be too forceful. And then also she needs to ratify herself, not nullify Trump, which is basically she just needs to be positive and give the country a vision for the future.
All right, what does Donald need to do on Monday night?
Well, he needs to talk more about his children. I think, you know, you have 3 children, and your children are a reflection on you. And certainly I think anybody, Republican, Independent, Democrat, would say that he's got a great family. Policy specifics. How many times do we hear him say, it's going to be great, it'll be huge, it'll be perfect, it'll be awesome? He can't do that. He cannot do that, especially on foreign policy issues. He's got to get specific.
And Hillary is studying up this weekend, so you know she will be doing that as well. And just let's end with big don'ts for Donald.
Well, I think one of the big don'ts is not to patronize Hillary Clinton. I think that he's got to come across as being respectful, that she's the former Secretary of State. One thing I'm going to look for, does he call her Secretary Clinton, or does he call her Hillary?
That's a good one.
Well, I think that might be disrespectful. So he also don't criticize the moderators. You never criticize the refs because it doesn't make you look good. And of course, we know Lester Holt is a, you know, quality moderator and straight down the middle shooter. And so if Donald Trump starts to criticize him, I think it's not going to come across well.
Very well said. Jim Osmond, great to have you in the studio.
Good to see you.
Oh boy, I can't wait till Monday night. I'm not big into football, but I am big into this debate. It'll be one to watch. We're going to be right back. Stay right there. And back to the breaking news in Charlotte, North Carolina this hour. Investigators releasing partial footage from a police-involved shooting. And there, on the right of your screen, that is the dash cam video. We, in fact, froze the video right before shots are fired, and the suspect gets out of that truck because it is just too graphic for television. We deem it inappropriate. But you do hear the shots fired as we freeze that video frame. The chief of police saying that there was no visual evidence that Scott was armed, but that he did, in fact, have a gun. Scott's family minutes ago saying it is unclear whether he had a weapon. And that's Fox Report as I report September 24th, 2016.